Russian President Vladimir Putin is now bracing up to host the BRICS summit in the Russian city of Kazan next week. The three-day summit is expected to bring on October the 22nd and will begin on October the 22nd and end on the 24th. According to President Putin, the BRICS group will generate most of the global economic growth in the coming years due to its size and relatively fast growth when you compare it to that of developed Western nations. He hopes to build up BRICS, which has expanded to include Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates, as well as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, as a powerful counterweight to the West in global politics and trade. Next week's BRICS summit is being presented by Moscow as evidence that Western forces to isolate and efforts to isolate Russia over its action in Ukraine have failed. Meanwhile, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has said that President Xi Jinping will attend the 16th BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia. Speaking at a news conference, Chinese spokesperson Mao Ning said that China is ready to work with all parties to promote BRICS cooperation to usher in a new era of unity and self-reliance in the global south and jointly promote world peace and development. Russia wants other countries to work with it to overhaul the global financial system and end the dominance of the US dollar. India and the United Arab Emirates has also confirmed their leaders will attend that summit. A German spy chief say that Russia could be capable of attacking the NATO military alliance by the year 2030. To discuss this, we're now being joined by DW correspondent Kate Ferguson in Berlin. Thank you, Kate, for joining us. And this is quite a dramatic prediction when you think about it. What prompted German intelligence officials to issue this warning?
Well, I think I can best answer this question with a few examples of incidents that have taken place over the past few months, and they really are quite wide-ranging. First of all, there was an apparent Russian plot to assassinate the CEO of German arms manufacturer Rheinmetall, which has been making weapons for Ukraine. Now, there have also been reports of high-speed drones flying over liquefied natural gas terminals in northern Germany. These are sites that were built to help wean the country off Russian gas after Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And then in July of this year, a package exploded at a logistics centre in the city of Leipzig. It was due to have been loaded onto a plane, which happened to have been delayed. But if it had exploded mid-air, it would have almost certainly caused the plane to crash. And altogether, these kinds of incidents are painting a picture of what German intelligence agencies are calling a quantitative and qualitative rise in acts of Russian espionage and sabotage.
But if we really are looking at a potential Russian attack within the next 6 years, how capable will German intelligence and even the army be on responding?
To answer bluntly, they do not feel ready, and this may be why they felt compelled to issue such a stark warning. One of the problems intelligence agencies here face has to do with data sharing. Exchanging information with the German army, the Bundeswehr, for example, is extremely complicated from a legal perspective, as is the use of artificial intelligence, actually. And then when it comes to defense capabilities specifically, the German army is dealing with the impact of years of underinvestment. Now, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz promised to address this with a fundamental shift in defense policy after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But intelligence agencies here say this hasn't really materialized. And finally, it's important to remember as well that Russia is operating a war economy at present. It's funneling enormous resources into its military at a time when countries like Germany are facing severe budget constraints. And I think that's also a really big factor in assessing the speed at which Russia could develop its attacking capabilities.
The NATO alliance is also very much held together by this commitment of its most powerful member, that's the United States. With that in mind, how could the outcome of next month's election, that's November 5th, factor into President Putin's planning?
Yeah, so a weaker West is, of course, in Russia's best interest. And in the past several years, the role of the United States as the leader and upholder of this alliance has been somewhat in question. If we look at the history of the two candidates, during his presidency, Donald Trump was strongly focused on getting NATO members to pay their fair share for defense. And that strategy did succeed in getting other countries to up their spending. So in that sense, he did strengthen the alliance. At the same time, though, he did also say that he would encourage Russia to do, quote, whatever the hell they want to countries which are not meeting their financial commitments. And in that context, another Donald Trump presidency would presumably be Putin's preferred outcome in November. Now, Kamala Harris is much more vocally committed to the principle of NATO. At the Munich Security Conference here in Germany earlier this year, she described it as the greatest military alliance the world has ever known. But still, even if she does get elected, support among the American public for funding and arming Ukraine is not a given. And that too is something that Putin is very aware of and also ready to exploit, I think.
Thank you very much, Kate, for your contribution on the world today. And to other stories now. Away from that war to other stories, as we reported earlier, U.S. President Joe Biden is in Germany and he's awarded the country's highest order of merit from President Frank-Walter Steinmeier. But speaking during that ceremony to mark the start of his one-day visit in Berlin, Mr. Biden said that he was overwhelmed to receive the Grand Cross of the Order of Merit handed for special achievements.
Let me begin by saying I'm overwhelmed, not just by the award, but by the words. Mr. President, Margot Friedlander, you are a voice of conscience and healing. I'm actually honored to be in your presence, for real. This award means so much to me for what it says about us. The journey we've taken, the alliance we've strengthened, the way that we have, as two separate nations, risen together to meet our moment. I think it's fair to say, although I know I only look like I'm 40 years old, I've seen a wide sweep of history. When I was born, our countries were at war. As a young senator, I visited West Berlin and saw what it meant to live in a divided city, country, and continent.
At least 7 people have died and 6 others injured after a suicide bomber detonated an unknown device at a cafe in Mogadishu in the Somalian capital. Among the victims were police officers who were having tea outside the General Kayes police station and the police academy situated opposite that restaurant. According to an eyewitness who survived that attack, the suicide bomber blew himself up when onlookers suspicious of the package on him started asking questions. In a statement posted on its affiliated website, Al-Shabaab, the group linked to Al-Qaeda, claimed responsibility for that attack. The explosion, which took place on Thursday, is coming just 2 months after one of the public beaches in Mogadishu killed at least 37 people. An update now on the tanker fire that rocked Jigawa State right here in Nigeria 2 days ago. The federal government has instructed the Federal Road Safety Commission to investigate the cause of the explosion that claimed 170 lives. Secretary to the government of the Federation, George Akume, stated this when he visited Jigawa to condole with the government and the people of the state. Mr. Akume, who was received and accompanied by the governor of Jigawa State to commiserate with some of the victims of the explosion receiving treatment at various hospitals, conveyed President Tinubu's condolences. Channels Television's correspondent Nanchin Vincent joins us now for more updates on the situation and the explosion in Jigawa State. Thank you very much, Nanchin, for joining us on The World today. It's been 2 days already since this sad incident, the tanker explosion in Jigawa State. As the town now settles down from this disaster, do families regret that their loved ones died this way? And do they understand the gravity of scooping fuel when a tanker falls?
Yeah, good evening, Layo. It's actually been 2 days and Jigawa State is still mourning. A lot of people here in the hospital who have come to take care of their wards are really, really regretting the fact that some of them had to go this way, especially that they are in their prime and they have to just die like that. It's really, really sad. They do regret. I was speaking to some of the family members who say that some of them just even went to see what exactly was going on before they were caught up in the inferno. It's really a sad situation here in the hospital.
Speaking to the injured from that explosion, how do they remember events from that day?
Yes, I spoke with one of the victims, Adamu, who was burnt from his head to toe, and he still had the strength to speak with us. And he said that all he could remember was the explosion, and he ran on his feet. He said nobody took him to the hospital or anything like that. He has always been on his feet until he began to feel the pain. And that was when he knew that, okay, this is more serious than he thought. He actually was not amongst those that were scooping the fuel. He said he just went to see because a lot of people were taking pictures of the accident, and that was how he got himself into this very unfortunate incident.
And what sort of support are they receiving from the government?
Yeah, they're actually happy that the government is doing everything within their power to ensure that their treatment comes in speedily. I was talking to one of them who was administering drugs to the patient, and they're so happy that the government is doing everything within its power to ensure that they get well as soon as possible.
Nanching, I'm sure, very sure that more fuel tankers have entered the state since this disaster. What measures are being taken to ensure this does not happen again?
Yes, earlier on today, I was speaking with Dr. Haruna Megida, that is the executive secretary of SEMA in the state. And he told me that one of the things they are doing is to go into houses, because when this accident happened, people came scooping. Some of them had scooped and left, and some of them had to come back, scoop, So there are some fuel that are, stored somewhere in houses, which also poses danger to their lives. And so they are going about ensuring from house to house that this fuel is retrieved and, done away with, so that there will be no repeat of a carnage in Maja community.
All right, thank you very much. Our correspondent Nanchin Vincent telling us details about the incident in Jigawa State. Let's delve into the world of tech now. In an era where innovation drives progress, empowering women in the tech industry is not just important, it is quite essential if we want a more inclusive future. And that's why the Empowering Women in Tech Conference, hosted by French Tech Lagos, with support from the French Tech Missions Community Fund, is bringing together leaders to discuss diversity, leadership, and innovation.
Absolutely. I just want to hammer on the point of...
The Empowering Women in Tech Conference, organized by French Tech Lagos with the support of Mission French Tech, brings together female leaders and innovators for an important dialogue on diversity, leadership, and innovation in tech.
We have Lele. We have Kemi Olajide.
This marks the first edition of what will become an annual event aimed at driving progress in gender equality, inclusivity, and the empowerment of women in the tech space. The statistics are sobering. The World Economic Forum estimates it will take 131 years to achieve full parity at the current rate. For women working in tech today, waiting more than a century is a timeline that feels far too long. But events like this are one part of the solution. In this room, there's a palpable sense of feminine energy and a shared resolve to change. The Consul General of France in Lagos speaks passionately about key areas of collaboration between France and Nigeria. His speech also touches on the need to set the balance right between men and women in the tech industry.
According to the 2023 report of the World Economic Forum on gender equality, Nigeria is ranked 130th out of 146 countries. This underscores the imperative for the continued fight or combat collective efforts to enhance gender equality and gender inclusivity.
The conference features two stimulating panel discussions. The first panel looks at how investments can act as a catalyst for gender equality and inclusion in tech, while the second shifts the focus to women's leadership in sustainable innovation, especially in driving social and environmental impact in Africa.
I think, the first thing is how do we expunge and change that mindset, that subconscious bias, how do we remove that, right? I think that's one of the key issues that we're seeing, that, that starts from birth and, all the way through to when you're an adult, and, you then have to be more conscious of how do you, sort of separate that thought process from what the reality is, because, not including women in any sector, specifically tech, is leaving money on the table.
There's a lack of investment readiness in female-led startups, but I think that comes from the systemic issues that we're discussing, right? And I think that's where mentorship comes into play. That's where, when we think about tech, we often think about STEM jobs, right? But there's so much more to the tech ecosystem than just being an engineer or just being somebody who is in the science or tech aspect of it.
Now, one thing that the tech ecosystem could do to bolster the confidence which women could display in such rooms would be to send money their way. If a woman is sure that if I get into this industry, I get into this sector, there is some resources allocated for me, it would really, really bolster the confidence of a lot of women. It will send a signal.
Investors would definitely invest in those type of companies because data speak for themselves. They know that they will make more money where there's a women-led business, and they make those investments to make money. So they will go for the women. And my perspective is more like we need to start with education.
It's a conversation that highlights not just the importance of gender parity, but also how women are leading the charge in creating solutions for a more sustainable future. The commitment to gender parity from the French Tech Mission is clear, and the success of this inaugural conference sets the stage for future editions, which will aim to push the boundaries of inclusion and leadership in tech.
In a highly debated law, children as young as 10 can be jailed once again in Australia's Northern Territory, and that's after the government there lowered the age of criminal responsibility. Australian states and territories have been under pressure to raise it from 10 to 14, and this is in line with other developed countries and UN advice. But in spite of the opposing logic of doctors, human rights organizations and indigenous groups, the Northern Territory argues that returning the age to 10 will ultimately protect the children. Many areas across Australia are lamenting being in the grip of a youth crime crisis and a string of violent incidents this year. And finally on the program, the sales of the iconic Sydney Opera House has illuminated with a photographic tribute to welcome King Charles and Queen Camilla as they arrived in Australia. This is their first visit in 13 years by a reigning British monarch to Australia. The royal couple arrived in Sydney on the Royal Australian Air Force plane today. They were welcomed by Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Australia's Governor-General Sam Mostyn and the Premier of New South Wales State, Chris Minns. Sydney's Opera House displayed a 4-minute photographic montage of King Charles's previous visits to Australia, where he attended school for 6 months as a teenager and has returned more than a dozen times. King Charles and Queen Camilla have visited Sydney and Canberra over 6 days before travelling to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa. That's the world today, the last edition for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Have a wonderful weekend.